The opinions expressed by the host and guests in this show are not necessarily the views of Children's Health Defense.
Good morning, CHD. It is Wednesday, the 17th of September, 2025. We are live here at CHD TV. I want to start off by wishing my husband a very happy birthday. To him, listening, I'm sure, as he always does, very supportive. I would not be able to do what I do without you. So big thank you to him and very happy birthday. All right, let's get on with some announcements. So today is going to be a fiery day. I can tell you that right now. This is the U.S. Senate Committee Health and Education. We are live streaming that. If you have not signed up for our text alerts, please do. They are free for you. But if you sign up for the breaking news, you will get a text alert today and you'll be able to just click on that and go straight to it. Susan Moranez is going to be speaking today, and I'm sure it's going to be a huge bashing session for our Secretary Kennedy. But there's going to be fireworks here today, so pray over Bobby Kennedy, please, and pray Suzanne tells the truth. That's what we need. So that's happening today. We are live streaming on CHD TV. Now, tomorrow and Friday, we have the ASIP, and our very own Dr. Meryl Nass will be live blogging for us all. We're so grateful to her doing this for us. So this, again, should be very interesting. So you may want to be absolutely signed up for these text alerts so you can go straight to the click on that, because I think it's going to be an interesting rest of the week. Also to say stories. Now is the time to tell your story, to stand firm, to stand up, do not be afraid. Write to stories@chd.tv. And if you're afraid to go live, we totally understand. We can pre-record with you so that you're maybe not so nervous, but it's very important that we get as many stories in as possible for the way the climate is right now at the moment. I've got a guest this morning. It's a very important story, but I just want you to know to stand by, because after that, Miriam has an excellent show for you live straight after, and we're handing straight over to Miriam that you're really going to want to watch as well. So for now, let's bring on our Judy Ryan. Good morning, Judy, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Again, it's an honor to be here. Thank you.
Well, Judy, this is a very important story because you're really sounding the alarm about mainstream cancer treatments, and we're so grateful for you for that.
Yes. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to take you back to because your diagnosis was at 17. So I was going to take you back to before you got that diagnosis, and describe what kind of a child you were growing up. Were you a healthy child?
Oh, absolutely. It happened I was a senior in high school. This was 1976. I was 16 years old. That photo, my senior photo, was taken about 5 months before a small lump showed up alongside my eye. And it was something that was not painful at all, not discolored. And again, I was completely healthy, normal, like if you were to say normal child. I lived in Los Angeles, and all of a sudden there it was. And wasn't painful or anything. My parents thought we'd take a look at it. If anything didn't change, they sent me to a dermatologist. And he didn't know what it might be. We thought it might be a cyst. So he recommended that maybe we see a family doctor who might be able to judge. They didn't know either, and made kind of like a very odd assumption that maybe it was a parotid tumor. And your parotid tumor is your salivary gland, your parotid gland, which is down below the cheek area. And they recommended, well, not really knowing what it was, by just looking at it. All they did was look at it. In the early stages, it was very small. And they sent me to a surgical team. And the surgical team, this is where it became crazy, because all they did as well was look at it. And when that was done, they said, well, when is your Christmas break? Because they said, well, on your Christmas break, we also think that this is a parotid tumor. We can remove the lump, and as a result, it may cause Bell's palsy. Well, you don't need a rocket science to know that when a surgeon is recommending surgery, that there needs to be evidence of why you would have surgery in the first place. He didn't recommend an x-ray. He didn't recommend blood tests. And there was no reason for him to even suggest such a thing. So that led my father then to look a little differently. Maybe let's go, there's a chiropractic college close nearby. That was my next step. And their recommendation is let's take an x-ray because it was growing little by little. And the x-ray was a reveal showing that my zygomatic arch was being eroded, which the bone going horizontally across my eye. And so that was interesting because we thought the lump was just external, not internal. So that doctor then scheduled an appointment for me to have a biopsy at Children's Hospital in Los Angeles. And we were agreeable to that, thinking that was relatively harmless until there is a story behind each and every one of these steps. And this one in particular at Children's Hospital, because what he told myself and my family in the hospital, without taking any additional x-rays, blood tests, or anything, said that in the biopsy, if he found that it was malignant, he would remove the lump, surrounding tissue, and brain matter that would leave a prominent dent in my head, and I would suffer brain damage. At this time, I was 16 years old. I was thinking I was going to school, but that man did not have a brain. It was beyond. So before anything really had exploded in terms of the tumor, the behavior of these surgeons was, I don't have the word for it. And that caused my father now to go outside of the basic standard medicine. Reached out then to an Asian doctor in Los Angeles. We tried cupping, thinking that might extract any toxins that was in there. Didn't work, was there for weeks. My dad then selected I go on an exclusive carrot juice diet for a complete detox, which I was agreeable. This totally made sense. And again, this was completely foreign in the 1970s. Unfortunately, over weeks, I was losing weight, getting weak. So my dad then reached out to a homeopathic doctor in Mesa, Arizona, and spoke to him, thought that, that the homeopathic doctor thought that he could help me. Mom and I flew there, came back with some vials, thinking that the serums were going to help eliminate what was now in my cheek, was now growing down a bit into my cheek. Unfortunately, after about 5 weeks, when my dad was going to be looking at another alternative, it was too late because overnight it had exploded into a much larger size and had moved inside my mouth. And that's when my parents then reached out to family for advice. And one of my father's brothers had gone to UCLA and highly recommended I go there for a biopsy. That's where they did a biopsy and determined that I had rhabdomyosarcoma, which has always been a relatively rare type of cancer. Had me stand before a tumor conference to determine how to proceed. And they basically said that it was inoperable and that I would begin with radiation and then proceed with chemotherapy. And those were the two types of treatment that I've been living with my entire life. And what was interesting, I ordered 7 years later, and I'm glad that I did this. I reached out to UCLA for medical records because I was thinking of writing a book. And I thought that that information would give me just good reference. But what I found was the fact that when Mom and I sat with the radiologist before I began radiation, getting the radiation, they recommended only 2 options, after effects. That would be a possible cataract in my left eye and possible permanent hair loss, just 1/3 of my scalp. But he never mentioned, and in fact, because there were only those two after effects, it gave my parents and even myself a sense of comfort. Like it didn't sound like it was too crazy, but it was. And one of the things that they never mentioned that I found in my records was the fact, and I have it, that basically what they basically wrote that I had brain necrosis. So when I finally contacted my parents and told them, asking if they had withheld that from me, they said absolutely not, and they were furious. My dad in particular said if they had told us that, we would never have agreed to 5 to 6 weeks of radiation, and when we found out that it was going to be 7, they would have cut that back. And let me just take a sip of water for a moment.
Yeah, do that. So basically what you're saying, do correct me if I'm wrong, is that you had all this treatment at the chemo and the radiation, but was it the radiation that caused?
The radiation is what I have been living with for the last 48 years. But the chemotherapy almost killed me. So radiation initially, what it did, it dissolved the tissue that had pushed its way into my mouth. That was crazy. And this was interesting, why the doctors never talked about it. And slowly but surely, I'm thinking, how is that going to go away? But it did. And it was a slow and ugly process because it was foul, dying flesh. So I was constantly throwing up, but it went away. Later on, once I started chemotherapy, the suture or the incision where the biopsy was done opened up into a small hole. It was never sutured. And it was a sign of how when your body has something in it that it wants to get out, the tissue inside that, all of what had grown from my temple down to my chin, started liquefying and started draining through this hole. The doctors never talked about that either. The doctors mentioned a few weeks after radiation that it had shrunk by 25%. They said that was depression. They never said it with any positive manner. And finally, because the chemo is what was deteriorating my health. We didn't know yet what the radiation was going to cause. We knew early on, and we thought it was temporary. My jaw was getting very tight, and that was from radiation. And let me just show you. That is how wide I've been able to open my mouth for 48 years. Doctors never said anything about that. When it was getting tight and stiff, there was no speech from these doctors. It was insanity, but it was UCLA. And when you are scared out of your mind, you go back again to the 1970s. Cancer was never talked about. It's not as if it's being talked about in any rational manner now, but it was more silent. And so it made it even more difficult for my parents, because I had a younger brother and sister, one that was 10 and one that was 7, and we're trying to figure out how they were going to help me. But eventually what ended up happening, even though this kept shrinking, they told my parents I had 6 months to a year to live. And I was constantly getting pneumonia. I was sick constantly. I couldn't eat. I had ulcers throughout my mouth. I remember when I went to saw one of my oncologists and said I could only drink 1 shake a day, but barely even that. And she stood there in silence, and they never tried to help me eat or get anything in my body. I was so sick. Until finally, it was when when I was going in for another chemotherapy injection, when I wasn't in the hospital, my dad would drive me there for the injection, and my mom was asking the oncologist if I could possibly skip the treatment because I just wasn't well. I needed a break. And he told her that it would result with that he would probably have to report them for child neglect. So the insanity continued constantly, and my mom was scared to death. I ended up going through chemotherapy another couple of weeks until finally my parents and I said, no more of this. No more of this. They won't talk to us. It keeps shrinking. My parents took the risk if they were going to report them, and we never said anything. And they never reached out to me or the family saying, where is she? After about a month, the tumor or lump had completely drained and was gone. But what I was left with, I mean, think about that. They said I was going to die. And in fact, my uncle called UCLA because he didn't believe it, because he believed in UCLA entirely. And he called just thinking they were wrong. But what they said instead, well, there is one radical surgery that we can do, but that meant that we would have to remove part of the side of her head, part of her, actually her eye entirely, and part of her brain. I don't know what their fascination was with taking part of my brain, but I cannot make this up. And I have been living with almost 5 decades of harm from what radiation did, because it wasn't a cataract. It completely destroyed my eye. The years I had to go through, little by little, I can't even go into it. I completely lost my hearing in my left ear. And with my mouth being as tight as it was, it caused eating and dental problems constantly until I had a condylectomy 10 years later. I did have permanent hair loss, but I had a tissue expander, which is a whole other story. I had to have reconstructive surgery to restore. This photo here is the last reconstructive surgery that I had. One of the first surgeries that I did have, they never told me that there was a risk of facial paralysis, which is why my face is paralyzed. Doctors never said anything. And then there was another reconstructive surgery that caused contracture of scar tissue in my cheek that caused my mouth to travel north. So I cannot completely close it. That has been for at least 10 or more years now. And I am now having other dental care right now. It never ends. I've had 12 teeth extracted. And bottom line, with all of this, when COVID began, and when I started listening and where people who were suffering and families who were talking about members who had died from the COVID, and finally, and people had a voice, never on mainstream media, but in different places. And I'm thinking, oh my God, why, after all these years, have we never heard from people like myself who have been suffering from radiation, from the treatment? They never talk about that. And when I republished my memoir last year, and I mentioned about the before and after of cancer, where most people will talk about before what that cancer was. Was it brain cancer, breast cancer? and then they'll talk about the end. Was it a remission? How are they doing now? But they never talked about the in-betweeners, like myself, like those people now that are paralyzed from having the COVID vaccine. But what is the difference about cancer? That we never hear about it. I think people are terrified, quite honestly. I think they feel that this is going on for so long that if they were to say something, are people going to think that they're complaining? Do they think that, well, the treatment did everything they could? If there was a cure, well, they did everything they could to keep me alive, because as we know, it doesn't matter what stage of cancer it is, people will still have body parts removed, even if it's stage 0. So my purpose is for there to be conversation, finally, on this topic, because I am not the only one. And people need to get out from outside of what this treatment is not okay. It's almost like, if you want to even compare it to rape, it is. It's where I was accosted by doctors who did not care if I lived or died. And it got to the point that you have to ask the question, why didn't you try and sue them? And you're at a state where you don't even want to have to deal with it, because it was so traumatizing. But and I moved past it. It was each step I was trying to move through it. I went to college. I got a job right away. I went to college right away. I got into work right away. I did write my book, but no one wanted to read it. And no one still wants to read it. They don't want to know. If you think I'm complaining, I'm sorry.
No, you're not complaining of every right. First of all, I want to say our viewers will read your book. Our people, our movement will read your book. Second thing I want to say is thank you for your honesty and for sounding the alarm on what is, we've done the COVID hospital protocols, we've done the measles hospital protocols, and now we're hearing the cancer hospital protocols, and they're all as awful as each other. But Judy, our viewers, our movement understand that there is no better education than the people to the people. And so thank you for what you do. I'm certainly going to get your book, and I'm pretty sure most of our viewers are too. Thank you for your bravery. We're so sorry what happened to you. And do come back on and update us as things go on. But I can't thank you enough for being on this morning and talking about your story. It's horrific, but you're speaking beautifully about it. And that's what we all need to do. Every single one of us has a story, and we all need to stand up. It's time, everybody. Judy Ryan, thank you so much. Judy Ryan, authoradvocate.com. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. Well, so there you go. There's another warning, people to the people, which is what we do at CHD TV. I'm going to hand the show over to Miriam now. Before I do, I just want to say I will be on with Catherine and Carolyn tomorrow. We have an exciting financial rebellion for you, an important one. But do listen, and I'm glad you heard Judy, and do pass that story on. It's vitally important. And here's Miriam with a much more uplifting segment.
Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to another EMR and Wireless segment. Today, we're going to talk about an exciting initiative we recently launched called 704 No More. This initiative brings together a coalition of over 100 safe tech and environmental organizations from all across the country. And together we advocate and litigate against the uncontrolled rollout of cell towers in our neighborhood. Towers are popping up near homes, schools, playgrounds. And so this initiative is about restoring local power over where those cell towers are placed, which is hugely important to protect our children from the involuntary and harmful exposure to RF radiation that is coming from these towers. We'll hear about the initiative in more detail and the legal aim from our lead litigator, Scott McCollough, in a minute. Welcome, Scott. I'm glad you're joining us again today. But first, I would like to introduce Camilla Rees to today's conversation. Camilla is a former financial executive turned researcher and fierce advocate focused on the health risks of wireless technologies. With over 25 years of researching and promoting safer telecommunications. She founded an organization called Manhattan Neighbors for Safer Telecommunications and electromagnetic.health.org, and she currently serves as a senior policy advisor at the National Institute for Science, Law, and Public Policy, where she has led influential work advocating for hardwired fiber optic networks over wireless systems like 5G. She is also a consultant to the 704 No More initiative and has been doing an amazing job getting the initiative off the ground with us. So Camilla, welcome. Tell our audience sort of like the broader picture. Why are we doing this?
Well, Section 704 of the Telecom Act of 1996 took away local government's ability to influence the placement of cell towers and antennas on health or environmental grounds. That's really outrageous. And people have been getting sick. Now, back in 1996, there weren't very many towers, but today we have over 140,000 cell towers. We've got over 200,000 macro cells. We've got over 400,000 small cell antennas. And so our living environments are being saturated in this biologically dysregulating energy. People now are much clearer on the acute effects, and they're getting chronic effects. In fact, many of today's chronic illnesses can be, many of today's fastest growing chronic illnesses can be linked to electromagnetic field exposures. People are starting to connect the dots, but many people haven't, and they may be sick with one thing or the other and not understanding there's a connection with that, with the cell tower outside or the router in the home. So regulators have failed us. They've been captured, as a report from the Harvard Safra Center for Ethics has outlined. And now is the time. We need to, while we still, of course, need to focus on the local issues in individual towns, people fighting the cell towers, and educating people. That's incredibly important. But we must come together and to address the federal level issues that are, and there are two, that are driving this nonstop proliferation and that will continue to enable this proliferation of cell towers and antennas unless we do something about it. So that is why we're doing 704 No More. It's essential. Otherwise, we really are doomed because they're just going to keep putting up these antennas. Now there are other motives besides telecommunications for us. There's surveillance motivations, there are military motivations, there are all kinds of other motivations, and it's a serious issue, and we have to take a stand for safe environments.
Thank you, Camilla. That was a great overview. And just putting a plug that while we're doing this federal effort, what Camilla mentioned, addressing these issues on the local level being hugely important. We're doing that through the Stop 5G initiative as well. And both is important, the top down and the bottom up. Scott, building off of what Camilla said, sort of like outlining the structure of the initiative, walk us through how we're going to do that from a legal perspective, and then we'll dive into the advocacy and the educational angles.
We intend to attack this federal effort to take people's individual rights away and disable local authority and state authority through a judicial challenge. We intend to contend that if and to the extent that Congress or the Federal Communications Commission either does have the statutory authority or claims it, the Constitution does not allow it for various reasons. there are some courts that have said, and you saw what the statute says, that local zoning authorities can't regulate on the basis of environmental effects. Some courts have gone further and said not only can a local zoning authority not look at how badly a cell tower might make people nearby sick, if somebody does get sick, the courts have further held that people can't sue, that federal law preempts the traditional state law remedies for the injuries that they suffer. Our position is, whether it is express or implied, that the federal law preempts. That cannot be so under the Constitution of the United States. Now, we have our argument for why the law doesn't really do that, but ultimately our position is, I'm sorry, that's just not the way it can work under our Constitution. People have individual rights. The states have traditional, what we call police powers, that Congress can't just take away in this fashion. The Commerce Clause, one of the provisions in the Constitution, simply does not go that far. And we're going to try to force the court to take a look at whether, one, the law really does this, and two, if it does, whether that's constitutional. We contend it is not.
Thank you, Scott. That was a very comprehensive overview. If you don't mind maybe expanding a little bit on what we need in order for those lawsuits to move forward. We're currently looking for plaintiffs in certain states and with certain fact patterns. So do you want to go a little bit more in detail about what we're looking for so that people can continue to spread the word?
Yeah, we're looking for three, generally speaking, categories of people. One, people who live in the Fourth Circuit, which is up on the East Coast, Maryland, the two Virginias, and the two Carolinas, that live fairly close to a tower, preferably within 1,500 to 1,600 feet, who have had a tower go up and have been made sick. Now, we've seen that happen in other places. We've got litanies of stories. In fact, we've got some cases going on in different contexts in other parts of the country. We have decided that the Fourth Circuit is where we wish to bring these cases. And so we're looking for people who have had a cell tower go up near their home that have been made sick. Second, stepping away from towers for a second, we're looking for folks in the same area, Maryland, the two Virginias, and the two Carolinas, who use a cell phone, just the device, and have been made sick by it. It would be better if these folks have already made the connection and have done everything they could to quit using the cell phone and remove wireless from their lives. But we're looking for somebody who's been hurt by cell phone or a wireless router, something like that. Third, one of the things that people don't really yet understand is the impact that cell towers in particular have on farmers and ranchers. The evidence increasingly shows that it's not just people that are affected. It's what we call the birds, the bees, and the trees. It affects soil. It reduces the productivity of the soil. Cattle and horses and other livestock. It affects their reproductive system. Cattle, for example, milk production goes down. We've heard more stories than I can count of somebody who does bees, and the cell tower goes up and all the bees either die or go away. We're looking for some people, again, in the Fourth Circuit who are a farmer or a rancher, had a cell tower go up and have noticed a significant decline in the productivity or even in the survivability of whatever it is that they husband. Could be crops, could be livestock. Those are the three general categories that we're looking for.
Thank you, Scott. And if you know anyone who fits that category, or if that maybe is you, there is a form you can fill out on the website where you can apply to be a plaintiff. And you can also email emr@childrenshealthdefense.org in order to get in touch with us. So Camilla, we're talking about these health effects, and we're talking about, how people who live close to a cell tower get sick. You've been doing research in this field for 25 years. Tell us a little bit about what the science says, and how long has the science been fairly clear on this? And maybe also talk a little bit about why should people care about this, even if they don't live next to a cell tower?
So, yeah, people should care about this if they don't live near a cell tower, because they go out and about in society and they're affected by it. But fundamentally, there's been an utter disrespect for life, and this energy is biologically disruptive. However, we're exposed to it, and we're exposed to not just maybe one exposure, but many additive exposures, and it's interfering with the homeostasis in the body, with the balance, the natural balance, and all kinds of systems in the body are being impacted. It's the systems are being affected by this energy, the immune system, respiratory system, cardiovascular system, but all the way down to the level of the cell and DNA are being impacted, and leading to all kinds of different conditions. Now, the US government knows this, and they have known this going back many decades. In fact, there's research going back 85 years, long before there even was a cell phone industry, research from military and industrial companies. And in 1971, the US Navy published a very comprehensive review of the science up until that time. And it showed it showed all kinds of associations with health conditions, neurological conditions, cardiac, cancers, emotional depression, anxiety, things we're seeing an awful lot of today in young people. And in fact, 23 of today's fastest growing diseases were identified as being a risk from electromagnetic fields in this Navy report in 1971 by Dr. Zori Glazer. And it's not just the Navy study, but the other departments of the US government have also done comprehensive reviews. The Air Force, the Army, NASA, the Defense Intelligence Agency, NIH with the Department of Energy, NIH with the National Toxicology Program. Even the Department of Interior has commented on the risks to wildlife and how the current exposure guidelines are not protective for wildlife.
It's insane when you think about that this has been going on for decades, and yet our exposure limits that the FCC sets remain ridiculously high. And even though we, together with the Environmental Health Trust, won a court case against the FCC in 2021, Scott, the case that you litigated, the FCC has done nothing to comply with the court order that they have to reevaluate their exposure limits. So tell us what's the latest on this case and on the FCC front.
Yeah. First, let me back up a second. Camilla was asking why people need to care. There are some newer numbers. Actually, there's something like 417,000 cell sites in existence right now. No, I'm sorry, make that 430,000. 558 million wireless connections in the United States. These are big numbers. And people should care because, one, it's already in your life. You can't avoid it. And two, it's coming to your house. The industry and their captive servant, the Federal Communications Commission, funded with federal tax money, are forcing just this heedless deployment everywhere they can. I mean, they're like Sherwin-Williams. They want to cover the earth. This is why you should care. And you should care because they do not. The federal government, despite all the studies that Camilla's gone through, is lying to you. You will see on many websites that there's no evidence of harm. That's just not true. Now, what is going on? Well, call it what you will. I will say it's been a bipartisan thing forever. What's going on? Well, the FCC is putting its pedal to the metal, except for the case we won. 4 years ago, the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals told the FCC it needs to reconsider its exposure guidelines, which have been deemed preemptive, as I explained earlier. The commission has done nothing. We filed a motion 2 years ago asking them to do something. Several other parties, including Environmental Health Trust, filed a motion several years ago. Just recently, less than a month ago, Environmental Health Trust filed yet another motion. Please do what the court ordered you to do. We will soon be weighing in and supporting that motion, and we're going to have our own position on it and make some suggestions. But we don't anticipate they're going to do anything, sadly. We may have to go back to the Court of Appeals. Meanwhile, the FCC's got all these other proceedings that they're pushing through. One where they're going to eliminate all environmental review for wireless matters. Two, they're going to vote at the end of this month on a notice of proposed rulemaking that would further extend the preemption. They're going to limit public participation in all of this. They're basically freezing out the public. They're going to decide where these things go in a dark room, and you're not invited to the party, even though you were the one that has to live with the consequences. Now, we're going to be, of course, participating in the FCC cases, but frankly, what I think is the best result is for us to bring this case we're talking about, the 704 no more case. The FCC can have its exposure standards on regulating its licensees, but the bottom line is it does not regulate you. You are not an FCC licensee. It cannot force you to accept involuntary exposure. It cannot authorize somebody through a license to kill to harm people, take their property on an involuntary basis, and then remove all of their rights. That's just simply not possible.
Right. And it is so interesting that in this draft notice of proposed rulemaking, they were very specific why they are proposing these rules, because they are getting annoyed at the communities exercising their rights to have a say in the areas like aesthetics or like environments that are not preempted. So the agenda of the FCC to further limit community rights, individual rights, when we know how harmful this infrastructure can be if it is too close to homes and school. It's just another example of a federal agency not doing what they're supposed to do, but instead catering to industry. I think the litigation for this initiative is hugely important, and we're looking forward to getting that going. But Camilla, let's talk about the education and the advocacy side of the initiative for a minute, because it is very important to see this initiative as a sort of like a three-pronged approach. So talk to us a little bit what we're doing in addition to litigation, and particularly about the 704 Coalition, because while this is an initiative of children's health defense, it is much, much broader than that. It is really a coalition effort of safe tech and environmental groups that you have been instrumental in putting together. So talk to us a little bit about how you built the coalition, what resonated with people and organizations, but also what's the best way for us to frame this movement so that it resonates with both policymakers and that it can help us to expand, educate, and get more people involved.
Mm-hmm. Well, if we do not dismantle Section 704 of the Telecom Act, we're just going to see more and more of this infrastructure. And I think that all the local groups that have endorsed 704 no more, we have well over 100 now, health and environmental groups. We have some physician groups, health freedom groups. everybody understands that this is not going to stop unless we do something on the legal front, and we need to come together as a force to build the momentum and support this legal effort. So what we also need to do, that I think people are coming to understand, is instead of we need to really aggregate, pull together all the evidence we have to tell the bigger story of what's happened here regarding the corruption of this industry. We need to describe in detail the lies about safety, and the manipulation and deceit in science, the way that studies are designed to underestimate risk that are really there's some really outrageous examples. And we need to describe the way that Congress has been manipulated, the media, makers, local government officials. We need to paint the bigger picture. So this is not just about, oh, I don't want the cell tower in my neighborhood. Of course, we don't want that. But we've got to look at the bigger picture of, what this industry has been doing, starting with their thermalist agenda, where they're saying that the only risks are from heating, from burn, from and they're ignoring all these other risks. They're five risks, and the safety guidelines today only attempt to address the thermal effects. Then they do not address or protect you from the non-thermal effects, from the pulsations, from the new signaling characteristics, from the duration of exposure. So they are, people are starting to understand that we have a situation here that has been incredibly corrupt, and where the regulator, the FCC, has become captured by the industry, and they're working in cahoots, and we need to come together to help people to see the bigger picture and to call out this industry and to support the changes that are needed so that we can have a chance of creating safe environments. It's essential. We deserve it and we demand it.
Absolutely. What do you say to people who don't believe that the impact of RF radiation is real because they either don't feel it or don't feel it in the same way that other people who maybe have electromagnetic radiation syndrome feel it?
Yeah, that's a tough one, because they also go into cognitive dissonance where they can't hold two truths in their head at the same time, that the radiation is a hazard and that it's not. And so how do you break people out of that? Well, when people wake up, when they get the brain tumor, or they realize that they've been sleeping next to a router, or they realize that all their symptoms are when they're at home near their cell tower nearby, but they're fine when they go on a vacation. So they're starting to wake up. But I think people need to understand also that just because you may not be sensitive right now, people are increasingly becoming more sensitive as we roll out, as more infrastructure is rolled out, as we go up into the higher and higher frequencies that are more biologically disruptive, like 5G. And where it's going, the higher and higher frequencies where it's going. People's biology, there's plenty of research showing that even if you don't feel it, your body is still being impacted by the radiation, and it's really only a matter of time. So it's very sad when the children are being exposed in schools, when they're so young and they're being set up for health problems down the road. So it's just an educational job, and people we hopefully, well, already the local groups across the country, there are hundreds of them. When I started in this field focusing on this issue, there were only about 6 or 7, maybe 8 people that were activists on this issue in the country, and now we have hundreds of groups. So word is getting out. More and more people are seeing their family and friends injured, and more people are having to leave cities and urban area, even suburban areas, and move to the country, leaving their social life, their families. The story's getting out, but it will naturally take some time for everybody to totally wake up. But I think painting the picture of this industry. And we're working on a document describing the lies about safety and the manipulation and deceit in science and the way that the industry has influenced Congress and the media and local governments. People need to see the whole picture. Local governments have been totally misled that putting up this towers are safe. They've been lied to. They haven't been told the truth about the insurance companies not agreeing to cover health liability from this infrastructure. People aren't being told that, although the risks are clearly displayed in the company's public company 10K reports, their annual reports that go through what the risks are. But they're not telling the users of the technology, the local governments. They want to convince that it's okay to put up the infrastructure in their town. And so it's, word is getting out, and we're going to accelerate the word getting out, both through education on the bigger picture of all these deceptions and also with the lawsuit.
Awesome, Camilla. Thank you very much to both you and Scott for coming on today and for talking to our viewers about this very important initiative and issue. And to everyone, stay tuned for action alerts, educational materials, updates on both the 704 No More initiative, as well as the FCC proposed rulemaking and the FCC case that Scott has described. We are going to need all hands on deck, and we are going to need you, the public, to join us in this very important fight. If you would like to learn more about the 704 No More initiative, go to 704nomore.org. You can sign up at the bottom of the website to a newsletter. We send out up-to-date information and materials that will inform you. There's a lot of information on the website as well on both the legal landscape as well as some of the health impacts. And you can, if you are finding yourself in a situation where you or your community are fighting an unwanted cell tower, go to stop5g.org and learn all about your rights and what you can do to move forward. Last but not least, follow us on social media. We are at Stop5G Near Me and at 704 No More on all major platforms, where we put out educational and up-to-date information on both the health and environmental impacts of RF radiation, as well as on the legal and other progress of the initiatives. Thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you to our guest, and now stay tuned for the People Study segment.
So tell us your name.
I'm Dr. Charles Adams. I'm an internist just outside of Chattanooga, Tennessee, in Ringgold, Georgia. And I have a traditional internal medicine practice, but I also have an integrative, functional, whatever you want to call, practice, and just have an interest in learning what I can to try to help people. And I'd like to give a quick positive story here that was a lot of luck, but this young lady, Danielle, and I'm embarrassed about this, so I'll try to get through it. When most people think of superheroes, they usually think of capes and tights. My superhero, however, rocks suspenders and a stethoscope. Dr. Adams, my doctor since I was 6, has helped me get through quite possibly the worst time of my life. When I was 6 years old, I began experiencing strange tics and compulsions like that of a child with autism. I knew that something wasn't right, but I had no idea what to do about it. My parents' hearts were broken. Spoke to her mom on the phone, and without hesitation, I told her mom that Danielle fell into the autism spectrum and she needed to come to the clinic immediately. We needed to try to get rid of some of the heavy metals. And long story short, that worked. And she did not progress into full-blown autism. The tics, the compulsions, all those things went away. She resumed life as a healthy young lady. And so it hurts that we can't save them all. I feel like I'm the catcher in the rye or something like that. But those are the kind of things I try to do on a regular basis, helping folks and help to prevent disease.
Right, and just so the viewers know, again, we're not giving out medical
No.
advice. He's not giving out medical advice. Children's Health Defence is not giving out medical advice. Blah blah blah. So, how many? You've treated a lot of people, right, with autism or with COVID or whatever it may be. Talk to us about all the things that you do.
I don't really have an autism practice. I just take them as they come and do what we can to help things. Just like with folks that have been vaccine injured, and recently it's kind of gone from bad to worse. But just doing what we can to help optimize their health and decrease the symptoms and try to get them to muddle through somehow.
And did you see many injuries from the COVID situation, the COVID shots, if you like, people who took that shot?
I didn't see oodles and oodles and oodles, but on the other hand, I've seen too many. No, thank you. No telling how many people got the shot that did not have any symptoms, and I haven't seen, but I've seen enough folks with symptoms that it's enough to scare the bejeebers out of you, or it should.
Now, with the situation with autism, do you believe when the parents tell you that our children were fine until we took the shots, the vaccines, and then they regressed? Do you believe that from us all?
You have to. If you don't, you're sorry. And parent after parent, that's their story. My child was fine, met all developmental milestones until they got this vaccine or that vaccine, and they have not been the same ever since. And one of the tragedies of a lot of that seems to be the young body, the young nervous system reacting to the heavy metals that are in the vaccines, be it mercury and or aluminum, and goodness knows whatever else they put in the new improved vaccines. But they're not good for us, and I don't know if they do any good in the long run.
But there's a lot we can do if we catch it early and try and medically recover.
There are a lot of things we do try to do. We try to optimize the health, the patient's overall biology. They're trying to boost up their immune system, things like that.
So why did you go? You say you're a medical doctor, so you're basically a white coat, but you also have a healthy alternative thing. Why did you choose to not stay white coat? What made you think, hang on a minute, I need to have this other practice too?
Well, we're supposed to help people, and so that's why I got into medicine, was to try to do what I've learned and do what I am to help people. And oftentimes the pure prescription route is not the best therapy available, and then you find out there are other things available, like doing a lot of intravenous therapies, like intravenous vitamin C, different vitamin and mineral IVs, not intravenous ozone, but using ozone therapeutically in different IVs. Things like that can really make a big difference in the way folks think, feel, act.
What else do you want to talk about in your practice that we can learn from?
Gosh, well, I do a lot with bioidentical hormones, and I tell folks that a lot of doctors say at a certain age you don't need hormones, and that's like, wait a minute. In the rest of the animal kingdom, once you reach or get past your reproductive age, something kills you and eats you. And basically, we humans, for the most part, have outrun our coverage. And so the vast majority of folks that use the bioidentical hormones, they improve greatly. That's just one facet. Also, anybody that was born before 1995, if they drove around on the highway, they did so in a cloud of lead from the gasoline from the car in front of them. And there's no such thing as a safe level of lead in the body. And so getting the lead out of the body is another really, really, really good idea.
And we used to chew on lead pencils at school.
Yeah. Yep. Well, also, it's a lot of fun to play with the mercury when you're a little kid. Clean your dimes.
No seat belts. I mean, people were smoking on aeroplanes. This is how old I am.
Amazing.
It was kind of a laugh in those days, I have to admit, compared to now. So do you think there is any vaccines that are safe and effective? Any of them?
I've not seen the data from that yet.
So no, there's no such thing.
So the answer, I haven't seen the data, so I don't have any reason to believe that they are safe or effective.
I think the inserts of every single one, and even the CDC will tell you there's no such thing as safe. They're unavoidably unsafe, or whatever the line is. Any other words of wisdom you want to give our viewers? No one is free from the duty of exercising. We all need to exercise. Don't let me get by with that. Next, everybody needs a vitamin D level of somewhere between 60 and 100, unless you've got a lifeguard tan. So forget it. Take vitamin D and check your level, and then vitamin C should be taken twice a day, and taken to bowel tolerance, just below bowel tolerance. Those are just a couple simple things very quickly. It's been a strong theme today, is vitamin D. Okay, well, anything else before we close this interview?
Nah, don't get me started.
Oh, well, this is your time. There's anything you want to say. But we appreciate, your wisdom.
Well, I can't tell you how much I appreciate all the things you guys are doing to help right the wrongs and try to get things back on a much better path. So God bless all of you guys.
Okay, I have one last question.
Yes, ma'am.
Because we have disease X coming.
No.
They don't know what it is yet, but never mind, be afraid. What would you, and this is just, viewers again, this is just a question to him, it's not giving medical advice. If you had to have 5 things, and you would have 5 essential things in your house to prepare for disease X that no one knows what it is, what 5 things would you have?
A blanket to hide under. No, I'm kidding. What I recommend that everybody do, number one, as soon as you make the call, oops, I'm sick. Do what the animals do. Jack up your vitamin C. The animals start making more, so gee, we could take more. Yeah, that's a real good idea.
So vitamin C in your cabinet, number 1.
Next, as soon as you make the call, I'm sick, you can jack your vitamin D intake up to 50,000 IU 3 times a day for 2 days. In Europe, that is known as STOS therapy. Next thing is, the surface area of our lungs is somewhere between a half and a whole tennis court. And you go, whoa, what? And that's because historically intravenous hydrogen peroxide was used to decrease the mortality of the Spanish flu in 1918 from 80% to 48%. And so nebulizing hydrogen peroxide, and don't use the brown bottle because it's got stabilizers in it, and you don't want stabilizers in your lung. But the food grade peroxide is adequate, about somewhere between 1 and 2% at the very most. Nebulize about 2 cc's of that, 3 or 4 times a day. That can help chase a virus out. Those are the biggies.
All right, again, this is not medical advice. No one's telling you to do this. Research and do your own thing, and definitely not advice from Children's Health Defence. All right, thank you so much. We really appreciate having a real doctor sitting here in front of us giving us advice. Thank you.
Thank you guys, appreciate it.
History doesn't wait. This is our moment to rise, unite, and reclaim our children's health.
Join us here in Austin, Texas this November at the Children's Health Defense Conference.
In the wake of unprecedented medical overreach and censorship, the world is waking up, and people like you are leading the way.
We're at a turning point in history. With the pandemic behind us, our fight for freedom and health has reached the global stage.
This is our moment of truth, and we're ready to seize it together.
And Children's Health Defense has been at the forefront of this charge. Our 2025 conference brings together the leaders, visionaries, and warriors who made it happen.
Meet the parents whose lives were forever changed, and hear from doctors who risked everything to speak out. Stand with those who refuse to be silenced.
You are going to hear from world-renowned speakers, doctors, and frontline leaders driving the medical freedom movement.
Discover real-world solutions grounded in science, integrity, and human rights.
Join the discussion to talk about vaccines, informed consent, parental rights, and so much more.
And you'll, of course, hear from your favorite CHD personalities, sharing the latest on CHD's research, litigation, and outreach.
And while you're there, soak up the energy, culture, and music of beautiful Austin, Texas.
Whether you're a parent, a practitioner, or a medical freedom advocate, this is your call to action to protect what matters most.
Be part of the movement that is rewriting the story for generations to come.
So please join us.
Join us.
Join us. Let's make history together in Austin.